Hi everybody and welcome back to our series. It's a week late. We had some computer difficulties last week. We actually shot our video but had some trouble on the computer, and so we weren't able to get it uploaded. As you can see, our location here is a little bit different today. I was a very fortunate father last year, 2020, in the spring. My daughter asked me if I would teach her how to do woodwork. And for those who don't know, well, I suppose you saw me in the videos building a shelf. Woodworking is a relaxing passion of mine. It's a way for me to kind of get over whatever's going on in life and get my head recentered. So I was very excited when she asked me, and specifically she wanted to know something about turning wood on a lathe. And so for Christmas 2020, she and I got this lathe. It's a 12-inch, kind of a nice little tool here, very well put together. And what I want to talk to you about, in the face of all the unrest and crazy things that are going on here, again, seems like that's what we've been dealing with more this year, has to do with tools. Not just tools, but specifically having the right tools for a job. And not just having the right tools for a job, but specifically knowing how to use them properly to get the desired outcome out of your project. And so I'm going to go ahead and kind of do a setup here and show you a little bit of turning as I show Talia. Maybe I should get producer out here and have her turn for us on the video to show you how her skills have gone. She's shaking her head. You got to learn you can shake the camera back and forth too when you're in that position. Anyway, dealing with having the right tools, I'm going to tell you a couple things here. One, I've got a lathe, which is the right tool for turning wood. Two, I have a center finder, because I found that no matter how good I am at measuring, I can never get it quite perfectly right. And so you take a tool like that and it does the job for you. And three is just knowing how properly to put these things together to make it work. Somebody's ears are probably hurting over there for that part. Okay. All right, so we'll go ahead and get our centers marked and tabbed and ready to go. For anybody out there that actually is good at this, please understand I'm not, never been a professional. I took this skill 30 years ago in class and really enjoyed it. And as I said, I find this very relaxing and a way to get my head together after a crazy week. So we've got our stock in the center here. It is centered up properly, and I'm just, for fun, going to show you how to make a few cuts on this and see if we can't turn this very square length of wood into something that's a little bit more attractive than just a square length of wood. You know, we have tools that mean a lot to us in life, and if you think about life tools like communicating and doing things like that, everybody has a mouth and knows how to talk. I wouldn't say everybody knows how to choose the right words properly, and I certainly wouldn't say that everyone engages their tools at the best times that they should. I've got a Bible story in here too, don't worry, but let me do a little bit of turning here. So that's just kind of having fun, making some turns as I'm teaching Talia how to make some different shapes. As I said, I'm very imperfect and just getting my skills back through practice. It's interesting, you know, in the book of Genesis, the 11th chapter, I believe, right out of the gate, after the flood had happened, after Noah and his family had ceased to be, there comes the story of the Tower of Babel. And we've all heard this story told so many different times. It's interesting if you go back to Genesis and you look at the story, it's told much differently than we're actually used to telling it. I can't think about that story without going to the concept of someone is up on a ladder building this tower and they need some bricks. And so they say to the guy down there, "Hey, I need some bricks." And the guy down there looks at him, he nods his head, he says, "Okay." And he turns down to the next guy below him and says, "Hey, I need some bricks." And they play this game of, was it gossip or telephone that we used to play, where one person starts a story and whispers it to the next. But anyway, by the time the thing gets back to him, he gets a hammer instead of bricks. And the guy looks at a hammer and says, "What am I supposed to do with this? I didn't ask for that." So he gets mad. And what we're told about the story is that they, as people, had decided that they were not going to trust God anymore. They were going to use their skills and their abilities to put themselves in a position where God had no authority over them anymore. And so God confused their language. The anecdote is, of course, language is probably the biggest skill or tool that they needed to have in order to build a tower to the stars, and it's the one that was taken from them. In the Bible reading, there's nothing really about the guy that asked for a hammer and he got a brick instead, or asked for bricks and got a hammer. But we can well see how that would happen. I remember, in fact, going back to my younger days in contracting, if we had a rookie on a crew, we always sent him to get a tool that didn't exist. And he'd rummage around the truck for a while. And the joke was, of course, the rookies always acted like they knew everything and didn't have to be taught anything. And so when you asked them for some tool that didn't exist, they didn't want to tell you they didn't know what it was. And so they go around, dig around in the truck until you rescued them, looking for a tool that really never existed at all. Well, that's not the purpose that God was after in playing this joke. He wasn't playing a joke on people. He was trying to get them to spread through the earth. But the part that I want to take from it is the idea of having tools and knowing how to use them. We're living in a world right now where people are just talking past each other. The one side says this, the other side says that, neither one hears the other, and everybody's just fighting for their way or their side. I have to say, in staying out of politics, as I always intend to do in my messages and from the pulpit, I think it's kind of interesting that we are so drawn to take sides with people. There's really only one side that's right. And it's the side that helps us understand our tools and how to use them. It's the side that slows us down to a point from rushing in and saying we know how to do things to taking our time to learn better. In fact, it's kind of interesting. The demonstration that I did here today, hopefully the camera is not too detailed. It's very crass to me because I had my tool skipping a fair amount. And I'll be honest with you, it's not the tool's fault. It's the operator's fault. And I'll even give myself a little bit of grace. I was watching a YouTube video from someone who was using a skew to make shapes, and I'd always use shape tools, but he did it so deftly, and when he was done, there was very little sanding required. And so I've been working on teaching myself how to do that so I can share that skill with Talia, and she'll ultimately be much better at this probably when she's teaching her kids, hopefully sometime down the line. But because he knew the tool so well, he could do it and just make it look simple. And I come in and say, well, I'm going to show people on video, and I can hardly keep the tool square in my hands as I go through this because I have not spent enough time focused on learning how to use what's in front of me. We have language. If you think about, imagine being in a marriage in which no one ever talked to each other. Does the garbage get taken out? Does the cat get fed? Does the bed get made? Do the dishes get done? And if it does, and we're not communicating, are we just assuming that someone else is going to do it? And is assumption a good plan? I don't know, but I can tell you this. As humanity goes, we tend to be cowboys, and we think that we know the end from the beginning and we know the best way, and what you need to do is kind of shut your mouth and listen to me, because I'll tell you what the right way is. And I'm always pretty sure that I know better than you. And so when we come across people in life that are confident and they act that way, we're drawn to them, of course, until they disagree with us, and then we push them away. But there's more to the concept than that. See, we're given these tools not to gratify ourselves or to make our lives better. We're given these tools to fulfill a purpose. Just as those people after the flood were given the skills and the abilities that they were to fulfill a purpose. Their purpose was to fill the earth with godly people because there weren't enough people on earth. And they decided to stay in one place and build some giant, huge town that would rival anything the gods could throw at them. And in that, they lost sight of what their purpose was. And so they were using their tools and their skills, but they were not using them for the betterment of society and life. Boy, I have to say, it just smacks ironic with me as I think about the way we go today. And we use our tools, but if we're using our tools to support candidates or people or this or that or ideas, then we're not using our tools to support the building of the kingdom of God. And by that, by the way, I don't mean using our tools to convince people that they need to go shut themselves in their closets and pray for the end of time so that they can be saved for themselves. What I mean is understanding how to work with others to create beauty out of blanks. Learning how to share with people God's love in a way that doesn't cause them to go home and hide, but to come out in the world and live a different life. It doesn't matter what background you come from. It doesn't matter who has been informing you of what's right or what's wrong. What's right is God's way and only God's way. And it's because only God's way is the one in which we put ourselves aside and we do for others. Those people all that time ago at the Tower of Babel forgot that message, and they were living for themselves, not to fill the world with godly people. I have to say, in 2021, it's hard to preach this message or talk about it without recognizing that most of us have been quarantined for some time in the last 12 months. And how do you do this despite quarantine? Well, I guess it pushed me onto YouTube, which I never intended to do. But I think understanding the tools that are in our hands and how they work, recognizing that when we encounter people, we can see them and judge them for what they look like to us, or we can see them and judge them when worked by the love of God. When worked by the love of God. Those are good tools. Love, communication. I have to tell you, they're a lot better than gouges. That's what you saw me using first when I was cutting all the rough edges out, because it's a pretty rough and abusive tool. It's very heavy in the hand, and as it goes along there, you can see it just strips that stuff off like crazy. I have to say, if I had one of these when I was a kid, if my brother had one of these when he was a kid, I might not be here today. We'd probably do a lot of gouging at one another or something like that. Using your tools in the right way is a key. And I have to tell you, everybody out there watching, talking, encountering has been given good tools. You all have mouths to speak, and you have a God that put them there to give you the words to say. You all have hearts in you that have love in them. Not to be hidden in a closet, but to be shared with the world, and not in the way the world wants it shared, but in the way that says you matter, and I put you first. So as we get caught in the rancor and the clamor of life, pushing someone in front or always saying this side wins and that side loses, my challenge to you is to get back to the skills that you were given, that you were created for. God says to Jeremiah when Jeremiah says to him, man, I'm too young to be your messenger, and I really don't know what to say. In other words, aka, I don't want to do this, God. God says to him, before you were even formed in your mother's womb, I knew you, and I had a plan for you. There's not a person watching this today, and there's not a person that you will encounter in your life this week that God didn't know before they were born or formed in the womb. There's not a person that you'll encounter that God doesn't intend to be crafted into a beautiful piece, ready to go out and use their own tools for good, not for self-glorification, but for lifting others up. And I have to tell you, when it comes to Washington and riots and this and that and the other, my take, until I see someone stand up for others, that will never ever be the side I choose. I love you guys. We'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.